Namaskar and a very warm welcome to all the viewers watching us. I'm Nidhi Kumar and you're watching India Science. Yoga is the science of life, and to celebrate the Yoga Month 2021, it gives me great pleasure today as we celebrate the science of life, which is union or yoga. Yoga and the yogic way of living have been so deeply entrenched into every facet of our life since time immemorial. Joining me today, Director General of Vigyan Prasar, Dr. Nakul Parashar, who has been working phenomenally in the field of science. And together, we fervently welcome Shri MG. Before I request Nakul Parashar ji to welcome Shri MG, let me please brief you about the key accomplishments of our keynote speaker today. Shri M's transformational journey from a young boy to a yogi is a story of a single minded discipline and dedication. He established the Satsang Foundation 20 years ago as a meeting point for all seekers of all castes. He was born as Mumtaz Ali into a Muslim family on November 6, 1949 at Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. His transformational journey from a young boy to a living yogi is what we bring to you today. The story of single minded discipline and dedication. Among the many awards and honors he has received for his contribution to society, Sri M was conferred with the Padma Bhushan in January 2020, one of the highest distinguished service in that order. We welcome you, and I now request Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director of Vigyan Prasar, to do the honors.
Namaskar, Pranam, and I would be very happy to say my obeisance to the master of a lot of things and a person whom I have met, the aura that he possesses because of, as Nidhiji rightly said, because of a single minded discipline and dedication. He has been able to conquer a lot of thoughts, ideas, and his uh, perception about everything in life is full of logic and reasoning and is very scientific in nature. We are indeed honored, pledged. Uh, we feel very blessed today to have Sri M with us, and we really want to thank him from the core of our heart, particularly on behalf of Vigyan Prasar and India Science, for having accepted our invitation to join us for this conversation. It's a conversation which I'm sure we'll all get enlightened. We'll all have, I'm sure, we'll certainly take a lot after this discussion because in whatever little that I have interacted with Shriyam in person has looks like as if I've known him for years and years together. His aura that he possesses, the kind of way he speaks and tells and connects with people is as if you're not talking to somebody whom you've never met, but as if you've met him for years. And I'm sure with a lot of knowledge, understanding, enlightenment that Sri M is blessed with, will be blessed while we speak with them. We try to understand and go through various facets of how yoga has been instrumental in our lives and improving the lives of many of us, and or not only us here in the country but all over the world. So without wasting much time, we are very eager and we are very anxious to listen to Sri M and our conversation that we have today. Once again, sir, we are honored, blessed, touched, moved, and inspired by your presence. And we look forward to a very enlightening and a very fruitful discussion today, not once, but also may I at the outset also request you to please bless us with many more such events in the future. So it's always nice to get a get a promise and a commitment at the earliest. So I'm sorry for being selfish, but your presence has been very great with us.
धन्यवाद
Thank you, sir.
धन्यवाद
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Pranam once again, Shyamji. I want to start with your fascinating story of a young Pathan boy, Mumtaz Ali Khan, who was at Thiruvananthapuram, so that your journey as a yogi inspires billions of Indians and, of course, as Nakul sir said, all across the globe.
First, thank you very much for inviting me to this particular, what shall I say, entry into understanding science in its ancient Indian context. Also, you said a young Pathan boy. Let me remind you that Panini was born in Peshawar. Panini,
Sir.
who is the author of Sanskrit grammar, because in those days, Bhamini Buddhas were destroyed recently. So you see how wide the whole thing was. Anyway, yes, when I was a young boy, well, I had an experience which directed me to search for the deeper mysteries of life, and which was the gracious touch of my teacher, Maheshwarnath Babaji, while I was 8 years, 8.5 years old, in the backyard of our house. This is what it kind of started the journey.
Mhm.
Well, the potential of the journey was already there, perhaps because of many past experiences. But that touch put me on the path. What really my mind was then thinking, I was told that I should believe in God when I was small. I said, I don't know him, so how do I believe? You see, so then I said, yes, when you say you believe, that means you don't know. That's why you believe. Because if you know, you don't have to believe it's there, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking for a path which will first answer my questions and then bring me to the understanding of what I otherwise believe because I don't know. This was the start of my journey. And somehow it occurred to me at that young age that this is going to be a long journey. So when I was 19, I thought I needed a proper teacher and a different environment to cultivate this process of learning, which would ultimately lead me to the aim of yoga, which is, yogis call it kaivalya, Vedantins call it moksha, the Buddhists call it nirvana. It's about the same thing. So, so that's why I just ran away from home. It's not an encouragement to young people to run away from home. At the age of 19, I suffered a lot because I came from an affluent background and I'm the only son in my house. I've never even gone into the kitchen in my life at that time. Now I'm a good cook. So I therefore had to suffer a lot. And then I reached the Himalayas. I met my master, Maheshwarnath Babaji, in Vyas Gufa. Now, after that, I wouldn't say it was a smooth ride, it was a rough ride, but then the ride did happen and I moved forward and discovered that there are these beautiful gems which come from our ancient culture and tradition and ancient science, which is the science of the human being and the core of one's consciousness, which unfortunately is not too much stressed upon by modern education. So, this is my life. I've just tried to put it in a nutshell.
Sum it up. Yes, your inward journey as you went inwards. Nakul sir, you may like to ask sir a question. Sir, you'll have to unmute, sir.
I can't hear you, sir.
No, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I'm sorry. I was mute.
Yeah.
So, in these challenging times where most people have to stay indoors and isolated, how do you think yoga can help address mental health issues?
Right. So here is the thing. You said in these difficult times when people have to isolate, stay in isolation. I'd like to change that word isolation a bit and give it a different direction. I would say stay in solitude. Let's le- let's not use the word isolation. Let's say solitude. Why I'm saying this that we should understand that in from ancient times in this country and also in many other countries, including medieval monks in Europe and so on, deliberately people kept themselves in solitude so that they could discover various things. So instead of looking at this as isolation, if we would only say that this is the time that is I know the pandemic is bad, people are, all that is understood, of course. That I have been given this time for reflection. So I'm in solitude, as the monks kind of impose solitude voluntarily, but this is involuntary. I can't help it. So I'm here in solitude. In this solitude, can I make use of this valuable time so that I can expand my mind and go in deeper into myself, which is not possible in normal times. When morning I have my breakfast, rush to the office, come back, then get into my car and I'm or bus or whatever, and then evening begins. uh, I don't know how many people, but it's a fashion among the youngsters, especially, to be very spiritual in the evening after 6:30. I'm talking about the spirit in the bottle. So, so this time that is given to us, if we can understand how to drink the real spirit that is within us, it's great. You know, it's called bhava. The ecstasy is called Lahiri, Saundarya Lahiri, the ecstasy of beauty, written by none other than Adi Shankara. Now,
Yes.
so therefore, I think we should use this time in delving deep into ourselves, and it's very important and it's very practical to do that. You see, normally what happens? Husband and wife live together. I'm talking about young people. Forget the time of the child hasn't come, let's say, and then one goes to work in the morning and the other goes somewhere else, so they are not getting on each other's hair, right? So when they come back in the evening, there's a very short time, so they do various things. Now you're not going out anywhere, you're living here.
Yeah.
This is the time when there's the right way of looking, which is
Mm.
called, I call it the yogic way of relating to people, which is start with the understanding that I may not be always right, I may be wrong,
Mm.
the other person may be right too. If you begin with that, then there is
Mm.
a way of how to relate. So I think this is the best time, instead of becoming disturbed and destroying your minds. This isolation is, oh, sorry again, isolate. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This isolation or solitude, as I said, is the right time to reflect and come upon great uh, energies in oneself and different modes of thought, which was not possible when we were so busy running up and down all the time. If I give you a small example, because I know we have only 1 hour, we need to go. Um, you see, there is this little moth, this little earthworm which crawls in the mud, and then one day it decides to build a cocoon. It, it eats a lot of mulberry, uh, whatever leaves, and then it builds a cocoon. Now it sits in this cocoon meditating. Whatever it does, we don't know, but it's inside. I would say that is solitude.
Mm.
Okay. And then what happens when it is mature and ready and has understood what to do? The cocoon is broken. And what comes out? What got in was a small worm which was crawling in the mud. What comes out is a multicolored winged butterfly,
Yes.
which flies up in the sky,
Mm.
soars up in the sky, not even touching the earth.
Mm.
So this transformation is possible the yogic way, and I would also say the Vedantic way, because we need to also uh, have theory and practice together to understand the essence of oneself. And that does not mean you have to be a monk or you have to uh, give up the little happiness of life. If you enjoy idli, there's no harm. You can still be a yogi. You know what I mean? So I think, sir, this is what uh, it's not an answer, it's food for thought to the question that you asked me.
No, indeed, sir. Very well answered, sir. Ah, Nidhi
Beautiful. I can almost visualize the butterfly. Sir, yoga means union, right? Union of a universal journey taken inwards, as you rightly said. Now, if I may to ask you, sir, if I may to relate it to food for thought, you essentially
Yes.
triggered
Yeah.
that question in me when you said food, because if you look at Ramadan, it is fasting. If you look at Hinduism, it is again fasting, Ekadashi, anything like that. So even in the Buddhist or Jain
Of course,
disciples, one sees fasting. So how would you explain this to the people also? Because do you think scientifically it is related? Or what is the essence of fasting? Is it to just detoxify your body or also detoxify your mind? So,
both. Let me explain this a little carefully. Now, when you say food, it means nourishment, right? Uh,
Ji.
Sahano bhunaktu. May both of us be nourished. So, nourishment. And nourishment is not only of the body. The WHO some years ago has gone on record saying that health does not mean only physical health, it includes mind health. You can't say you're healthy if only your body is healthy. A healthy body may contribute to a healthy mind. I am also saying the other way around. A healthy mind would make you live in such a way that it will contribute also to your physical health.
Ji.
Important to note. You said yoga is union, right?
Union.
Now, if you go to the etymological root of yoga in Sanskrit, it can come from two words. One is yuji and the other is yuja. Yuja, of course, is uniting, from which people say yoke, coming together, and so on. Yuji means attention, full attention, yuj, full attention, full concentration, what we call dharana in yoga. Yeah. So we go back to the food subject. So while we need good food, nourishing food for the physical body, when I say nourishing food, it means moderate eating. Now, Krishna has given a beautiful golden rule in the Bhagavad Gita when he said, this yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little, hmm, sleeps too much or sleeps too little. Now, sleeps too much or sleeps too little is related to food for the mind, and eats too much or eats too little is related to food for the body,
Ji.
nourishment. So, if you ask me what kind of food, food that is healthy, food which, well, personally, I would say vegetarian food. But if you tell someone who has been all their life non-vegetarian that before you become vegetarian, I cannot teach you yoga, you can't get many students, especially
Yes.
now youngsters, you know how they are. So I said, you start. And a time will come when you will understand that I can sustain myself without killing an animal, then stop it at that point. A time will come, I'm telling you. If you really go into it, you develop kindness and compassion, and you say, if I can go. I travel all over the world. Last time in Helsinki airport, they said, we want to make you eat steak. I said, I don't eat steak. They said, no, vegan steak, right? So people are going vegan, people are going vegetarian because it has been understood that it has all the nutrients necessary for our survival. Not only survival, the more better and nutritious food you eat, it develops your mind. And right now, we don't know any mind except the brain. So let's say develops the brain. Now, Sankhya and Yoga are on record saying that the subtlest part of the food that you eat goes to form the mind. So they are related. So it's not as if spirituality or what we call mm, the science of yoga is not related to the physical body. If that is so, then we don't have to adjust our bodies to move there, right? Why fast? Why do we fast? Because the body gets some rest, digestive
Yes.
system gets some rest, and there is more energy used for higher purposes of conscious growth. So, therefore, let me sum up moderate quantities of food, nutritious food, food that is not too pungent, food that will contribute not only to your body but also to your mind. Now, food that contributes to your mind includes swadhyaya, self-study. Uh, then another thing is if you eat too much, the tendency is to sleep actually.
Yes.
We are not trying to sleep. We are trying to wake up. The call is wake up. So, you know, you know, in the among the Muslims, one thing I must admit, these guys are very disciplined. You see
Hmm.
them in the railway stations. When the time for prayer, they'll roll out their mat and do their prayers.
Yes, yes,
And in the
absolutely.
morning at 5, yeah, morning at 5:30, you're supposed to sit up and do your Sandhya Vandan, start your
Right.
meditation. Everybody's sleeping, and these guys stand up and call, wake up,
Yes.
call. Now, once the Kanchi Shankaracharya, I'm talking about a great saint who from Kanchi, he was called Periyawal, the senior Shankaracharya of Kanchi, said that many of the people in the ashram woke up when the prayer call went next door. He said they think they are in a resort and they're angry that this guy is waking them up. You know what I mean? So, why
Yes,
I was
right.
referring to this is sleep. While sleep is good and necessary, I agree. But
Hmm.
there are times when prayer and meditation is more valuable than sleep. 10 minutes of yoga nidra is equivalent to 1 hour of sleep. Hmm. And you know, when they call for prayer, there's one sentence that is used in the morning, which is only used in the morning. Since I know the language, it's as-salatu khairum minan nuam, which means prayer is better than sleep. This is said only in the morning. It's not praising anybody, it's just a fact that, look, get up, it's time to explore. So, what I'm trying to say is moderation in everything. Rest is required, action is required. Yoga is
Absolutely.
action oriented. Look at the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita doesn't deal with Hatha Yoga or something like that. Every chapter is called a yoga. 18 chapters, starting with Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's sorrow, and then to Moksha Yoga, which is Sannyasa Yoga. So every chapter is a yoga, which means yoga is not merely a physical exercise, but it is something to develop the mind, keep you healthy, of course, but develop the mind and at some point take you beyond the ordinary mind so that you decondition yourself and realize that the essence of your being has infinite energy and strength. This is important to note.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
No, I think, sir, what you've rightly said, and everything in moderation does help. And you spoke about yoga nidra. 10 minutes of yoga nidra is equivalent to an hours of sleep, and this is something that is only possible when you experience it. So,
Absolutely.
right. So, sir, in this case, a very obvious question that comes up is that is it right to call yoga an experiential science?
Absolutely. I would call it not only an experiential science, I would call it an experimental science also. You know, huh, because year before last, this pandemic, I couldn't travel. So year before last, I was in Geneva at the WHO headquarters, and they wanted me to talk on uh, yoga. So I said I would like to talk on the subject yoga beyond asanas. Yoga is not just asanas. Yoga is beyond asanas. It's a very, as you said, sir, experiential because every step you go experiencing step by step, and it is experimental because you do it in a perfectly scientific manner with all the required scientific uh, what do you call conditions that are required for a scientific experiment, and you believe it only when you find the result. And believe me, all who have done it have found the result. So this is where why do I say it's very scientific? Because uh, let's say that I'm meditating, suppose, and I feel very nice. Wellness factor. I feel blissful, I feel nice, tranquil. You know what? A scientist to tell you, especially an endocrinologist, one who deals with the ductless glands, who tell you uh, that this is because serotonin and a small amount of dopamine has been released into the bloodstream. Nobody injected it, it's been released. What I'm trying to say in yoga, there are techniques by which you know how to trigger these ductless glands and introduce the hormones that are necessary to bring about a state of wellness. Our master gland is the pituitary.
Correct.
Sitting here, it controls the whole body. The Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, there's a beautiful description. Urdhva moolam matha shakham, which means there is a tree which has its roots up above and branches down below. Maheshwarnath Babaji, my guru, explained it in this way. He said it's a reference to the human system because everything is controlled here. So this is the root. We call it the Sahasrara in yogic terms. The Sahasrara is the controller of everything. And the rest, all the branches, the tree, everything is down. So the conscious nutrition comes from here. Now see, if you look at it biologically, the pituitary gland sits up here. Then there is, of course, the brain, the wonder that is with us, the brain, the human brain. And from the pituitary below is a little pineal gland. And there is if you look carefully, many of the chakras which are located in the practice of Yoga Tantras, read the book Serpent Power by author Avalon. It's a wonderful exposition of Sat Chakra Nirupana, description of the six chakras. As you see that most of the chakras are in places where the nerve plexuses are formed. There is the central nervous system, then there is the ganglionic chain on either side, which is the parasympathetic. Now, from the central nervous system in the spine, nerves come out, nerve roots, and join in front, and they are called plexuses. Many plexuses are there. If you look at the Yoga Tantras, you will see that most of the so-called chakras or padmas are located almost at the same point as where the plexuses are. Which means what? That there is a great link between mind, the nervous system, which includes, of course, the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. The whole science of Kriya Yoga and Kundalini deals with the central nervous system, with the spine. So, to doctor's question, what I said, Dr. Parakshar's question, what I said was, it is not, what this is the question you asked me. It is not only experiential, it's also experimental. And if one gives enough time to this, India Science is a wonderful name. I think it should grow in such a way that people realize that it's a science. This is exactly what I want to try because it's all covered in mystery and super. People sometimes don't want to touch it. It's such a scientific thing, and we should be proud that it came from this country where we live, the air we breathe, the food we eat. Someone said, don't say
Absolutely.
Bande Mataram. I said, why not? Because this is the mother that nourishes us. Why not?
Beautiful. And salutations to Patanjali for giving us this
Oh,
absolute wonderful science here. You also mentioned Panini. There is a lot of things going on now between Murugan and Lord Murugan and Panini and Palini, that place, and a lot of other things
ah,
connected to NASA and space, which we can talk about maybe another time. Meanwhile, sir, another question that I'd like to ask you is that the universe has now become something like a wishing well, that or prakriti, or what we are doing to prakriti, how we are harming it. And every 100 years, the pandemic returns for the
true.
next 5 years. Taking it from here, sir, the stress rates are off the roofs. The initiative is to challenge the trend by human
Hmm.
beings. The virus is
Hmm.
smarter than you and me. We can do better. We will be doing better. माननीय प्रधानमंत्री काफी कुछ इनिशिएटिव ले रहे हैं यहाँ पे, but the intention is to shift people from ill-being to well-being. How does this happen with Kriya Yoga?
First thing I have to say that life should not be. This is a Western a concept that has come to us from probably from the West that to live is to exploit and control nature. No, the ancient Indian tradition says that to live is to live with nature. You see, the ancient academies where rishis taught the students, where were they located? In beautiful forests. They're in fact called forest academies. In fact, when a person wanted to study seriously the great mysteries of life, he went into vanas, into the forest. They're called vanaprasthas. And what did we learn to do? Cut the trees, break the trees, exploit the forest. At some point, yes, to a certain level, we may need certain things from the forest, but when you look at everything as live, everything is alive. The plant is alive. You don't look at a tree and see a brain located anywhere. There's no brain. That every cell has intelligence. Otherwise, how would the tree root go in search of water, even if it has to go 80 feet below the ground to look for water? Where is the brain? You don't see a brain visibly, but every cell has a brain. Now, when there is no sunlight, the branch grows and goes towards the sun. You don't look at a brain in the tree, but it's built in. So when we understand this common factor, that everywhere there is this divine intelligence, then we become one, part of the whole. Now, in Vedantic concepts, the word Tattvamasi, you are that, means in true essence, you are not different from the supreme reality. That's the Vedantic. But I think even related to the earth, Tattvamasi could also mean the world that you see around is not different from you. It's you and me. It's a reflection of you. I am a reflection of the world, and the world is my reflection. So there is a relationship, an intimate relationship between the environment and the human being. Prakriti is nature because it has many qualities, and there is a unity in all these qualities. The unity is that there is an intelligence in all of this, except that in us it is a little more developed because we have a developed brain. But so when you see this unity, this is the unity in diversity. Ekatva is this. And when this is understood deeply, then we will work with Prakriti, with world, with the Prithvi, rather than destroy Prithvi and exploit it. These are two ways of looking at life. So if this can be ingrained in our system, I think it's an answer to most of the things that are happening in this world. You're talking about the pandemic. I, I assure you, if you continue to exploit the earth, another pandemic is certainly not far. Very important to note.
Very true, sir.
Exploit the earth and perhaps exploit the animals or
Of
anything
course.
beyond that, as
You
it
see,
is indicative.
I want to tell you something. Sorry for the interruption. Uh, I know someone, I'm talking about exploiting the animal. I know someone who at one time used to travel with me because I like to drive, but I can't always do. Whenever you saw any beautiful living creature, his only thought would be, how many kilograms of meat is this worth?
Oh my
Can you understand what I'm trying to
God.
say?
Mind.
There, one of my wife's relatives, my wife is a Saraswat Brahmin. One of her relatives, her uncle, was a forest contractor. You know what forest contractors do? They fell trees. It's called a coup.
Yeah. Mm.
So one day he went to meet there. The Saraswats have a mutt, and they have a
Mm. Okay.
guru there sitting. So he went to meet him. And one day he called him and said, "Hey, Manjunath," I think his name was Manjunath. You don't like killing animals, right? He said, "No, sir, I am a vegetarian." "No, Swami, I am a vegetarian." "Do you think trees have life?" He said, "Yeah, trees must be having life. You say so, I don't know." Well, he said, "Take it from me, trees have life. And you say that you don't injure any animals. And your main business seems to be cutting trees. Is that a good business for you? You say you're a Brahmin. Is this a good business for you?" You know what he did? He came back and went into automobile business. This is enough. But it hit him, at that time that he was only exploiting the forest. Well,
Right.
there are other ways, like you can grow trees, you can have apple orchids, you can have so many things. Like I live in mango country, Madnapalli, where I'm speaking to you from. It's our headquarters of the Satsang Foundation. It's also a little house where I live, and this is mango country. We are eating mangoes now for last 1 month. Beautiful mangoes, believe me. Uh, Now that is different. You're not exploiting the mango tree. You're living with it, right? I'm just giving you an example to show that we need to live with Prakriti and not always think of profit. This
Absolutely.
profit and loss account should be there, but it should be kept a little away sometimes. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you will, yeah. So no wonder that suddenly a virus decides that let me exploit. So virus, it's just surviving. We think
Yeah.
it's
The
don't know
virus
where
is
it came
getting
from, but
smarter than any of us. And as we speak, there is another variant of the virus called Lambda, which is
I
now
know
a variant of concern everywhere. But primarily, what you said, we need to inculcate in our children the value
very
of
much,
trees, the value
very
of
much.
animals, the value of love, empathy, compassion towards the entire Prakriti, which I am sure we have failed. Our previous generations have failed, but
We
this
failed.
generation
It's our
is
tradition, but we have
smarter.
failed.
We have failed. And the amount of paper I see, and whenever you speak like this, I see trees. So it happens, that sync happens when you start realizing that you and I are just a speck in the universe. And
Absolutely.
we have been sent here on a journey to give. And that is the biggest lesson that we learn from nature, is to give. Meanwhile, I
Yes.
request you to please explain to me what chitta vritti nirodha also means. You explained that tattvam asi, and I would explain that as aham brahmasmi or something like that. Chitta vritti kaise aati hai, sir?
Now we've gone into a technical subject. Okay. Um, so, yes, Patanjali is the author of the Yoga Sutras. Okay. Now, Patanjali is yoga is a darsana. It's one of the Shad darsanas, 6 darsanas, and it is separated also from Sankhya, although it borrows a great deal from Sankhya. The Yoga Darshana borrows many of its terms from Sankhya. Even the Ishvara of Yoga Darshana is the same as the Ishvara of Sankhya. Okay. Now, Patanjali is one of the greatest expounders of the Yoga Darshanas. And the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are well known. Mm. Even Swami Vivekananda, when he went to the West, he spoke. There are some sessions where he spoke on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which have been collected together now and published in the form of a small book called Raja Yoga. You can also find it in his complete works. So, the first sentence after Atha Yoga Anushasana, that with here begins the dissertation on yoga. This is the first sentence in the Yoga Sutras. Yes. And the next one he says, so then what is yoga? He says first, this is Atha Yoga Anushasana. This is the study of yoga. Then he says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Now we have to explain 2 words. Chitta, Vritti, 3 words, and Nirodha. Chitta is actually the mind stuff, let's call it. And in fact, vrittis are the waves in the chitta. There may be good waves, there may be bad waves, negative, positive. Uh, uh, any movement in the mind stuff in a wave form is called vritti. It includes our disappointments, our joys, our sorrows, our reactions, our repulsion, our attraction, um, basically all the distractions that take place in the mind. Distractions. So these are the vrittis. Now Patanjali says the aim of the yogi is to get rid of these distractions from the mind, nirodh, take it out completely, so that when this happens, then the mind becomes absolutely quiet. The chitta, which is free of vrittis, no longer is the ordinary chitta, it reflects the Purusha, the ultimate Purusha, which is in yogic terms and in Sankhya terms called kaivalya. Now, what does kaivalya mean? Kaivalya is from the Sanskrit root kevalam, only one. So, somewhere it connects with Advaita in some way, but there is only one. So, the yogi who has through various practices, various modes of food, uh, and so on, and also through various asanas, pranayam, and understanding, gets all the distractions of the mind removed, which means all the vrittis are gone, then that mind becomes clear. That chitta is a clear chitta, like a mirror which has been wiped clean, or like a pond without a ripple. Now, when this happens, then that chitta loses its so called uh, peculiar characteristics of being a limited individual and realizes that it is actually the Purusha, which is an unconditioned supreme consciousness. So the process of going there is yogas. Yoga is chitta, vritti, nirodha. And the entire science that comes after that is how to bring about the cessation of all distractions and conflicts in the mind. A mind free of conflicts and distractions reflects the essence of one's being. And that essence, well, you may call it Purusha, you may call it the Brahman, you may call it the Atman, call what you want. It's not a limited thing, it's almost unlimited, it's multidimensional.
No, I think so. This is wonderful because, as you rightly said, it controls the fluctuations of mind, and how you've explained it in such a nice way. There's another question that comes to my mind is, how do you think is yoga related to the well-being of a human being?
Of a human being in general.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, because yoga has basically many parts, but they have been kind of put in 8 groups, 8 grouped into 8 parts, which is Ashtangas. That's why sometimes they call yoga Ashtanga yoga. Now, Ashtanga yoga begins with yamas and niyamas. How to live, what to do. One we should remember is one of the first yama is ahimsa, not causing injury to other living beings. Right. Then simple living, proper food, nutritious food. Um, uh, yeah, roughly this would kind of summarize what yama niyamas are. So that means the way of life is already put there. This is how you should live. So it applies to all life in this society. And then it goes to asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and the ultimate, which is samadhi. So forget about samadhi for the moment. Even if you need to lead a better life in this world, in this uh, world where we are always fighting with each other, distracted, and so on, I think yoga is the golden science to understand, because through which you can control your mind's unnecessary uh, distractions and bring it to complete attention. Now, this attention is useful not only for meditation but also in worldly things that you do. Like everybody has a job, everybody has a business, everybody has, or one may be a scientist. It's a work that we are doing. That's the karma part of our life. Now, yoga also helps us to sharpen our minds, sharpen our actions, make our actions less selfish and more for others, you know. So, therefore, it's an ideal thing for people who live in this world. Yoga is not for those who, not only for those who don't live in this world, who live as sannyasins and so on, but yoga is for the ordinary householder who lives in this world and who can handle his life, his career, his thinking, everything in a better way through the abhyasa, which is called yoga, starting with
Absolutely.
yama. Yeah. Now, when I say asana, it need not necessarily mean all the 82 asanas that one does, or one can is not an yogi unless he does Shirsasana. No, Patanjali doesn't describe a single asana in the Yoga Sutras. If you want to study about asanas, you have to do the Hatha Yoga Pradipika or something like that. It's not described. What one sentence which Patanjali uses is Sthira Sukham Asanam, which means a posture in which you can sit in comfort for a length of time is your asana. Huh? So, mm, if I sit in a chair, you know why most of the back problems occur? Because we have learned to lean. There was a time when everybody sat like this.
Right.
There were fewer back problems. Believe me. Uh,
Correct.
Now our spine has become powerless, these muscles, because we like to lean. So when we want to sit this way, there is pain. So all I'm trying to say is that there is a yogic way of life, which is for ordinary day-to-day living for you and me, and not only for you people who are in the Himalayas or who have given up everything and become sannyasis. It's for the ordinary human being.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
As you said, Shriyamji, earlier marriages were also yoga. Every karma that you do is yoga. Very rightly said. Your career is yoga. Aham bhojanam nev bhojyam na bhokta
Absolutely.
chidanand rupam, so on and so forth.
Kyo hum you.
In the present times, people are suffering on the macro and micro level, sir. On the macro level, they're losing their jobs. There is starvation. I'm talking of the pandemic times,
Yes, yes, I
the
understand.
COVID-19 times. How do you overcome this mental stress? How do you overcome this bondages of emotions when a loved one dies, or when you lose, near and dear ones in illness, disaster, the pandemic, everything of that? How can then you put your concentration in that chitta riddhi nirodh, or sit in concentration when your mind is so wavering?
Well, first thing is it's not so easy. Let me put it this way. I can sit here and talk about meditating and taking my mind away from the, but when it happens to someone who is related to you, who's in your own home, your mother, your father, your children, your wife, it's a different thing altogether. It's easy to preach, but when it actually happens, one has to remember that first, only time can heal this. There is no instant solution for this. Only time can heal this. However, it helps if a person knows how to keep his mind quiet and tranquil under all circumstances, which in the Gita is described as sarvatra samabuddhaya. How? By understanding that at the time when a near and dear one of your family died, hmm, thousands of near and dear ones in many families have also died. Not only us. We feel it more because we see only us. If you see the other, then your pain is distributed actually. And you want to, especially if you want to say, okay, I'm also part of this. Somebody's died in my house. Look at my neighbor, look at the other neighbor. There also people have died. Shouldn't I do something about them? When this positive thought occurs, then I start seeing what I can do for the other. This is called karma yoga actually. Karma yoga doesn't mean only uh, passionless action to achieve a result. No. Karma yoga means the more it is outside your own self, the more it becomes karma yoga for somebody else. So there is this beautiful story of a lady whose only son had died and who went to the Buddha and said, "Sir, you are the enlightened Buddha. Please bring my son back to life. I have only one son." And the Buddha didn't do a miracle, anything. He said, "Yes, please go around and see if there are any houses where nobody has ever died, and bring a mustard seed from there, and then we will talk. Poor lady went around and looked everywhere. There's not a single house where somebody at some point had not died. So she came back and said, I can't get the mustard seed, it seems. So said the Buddha, it's part of life. Your son has died. You feel it today because your son has died. At this point, when your son died, hundreds of sons have died in all the world. Do you realize that this is part of life, sorrow? When you realize that, it strikes you, oh, it's not just mine, and then it kind of reduces the weight. I'm not saying it's easy. It reduces the weight that it is only me who am suffering. The whole world is suffering. Now, what do I do if the whole world is suffering? Distract my mind from my little suffering and try to do what I can for the other. Think of loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Let the whole world be happy. Then I am forgotten in the middle of it. The grief. Where is my grief when so many are mine? Everybody is gone. You know, Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha is how the morning starts. May the whole world be happy. If one constantly does this, then your own thing is not so important. Well, it's not easy, I understand. And when someone near and dear is dead, the wound will be there somewhere. It takes time to heal. Now, there are yogic practices, there are meditations, there are bhajans, there are kirtans, which can keep our mind away from this for a while, but when you're alone, it may come back.
जी.
That only time can heal. Let's be factual. But my understanding is, there's today I went to a hospital here. There's an old hospital in Madanapalli, the MLL hospital. You must admit that the Christian missionaries, especially the medical field and education, they have done wonders. And here this is I think a 90-year-old hospital. And when I went there, I saw the doctors and the nurses, and the bishop had come to say, can you say a few words? I said, I don't have to say. There's people standing before you. They are the heroes, not anybody else. I said, it is not religion that has saved them. It's the dedication that has saved human beings. And they just work night and day. We are under control in Mannapalli now. There's no problem. But look at the young girls, nurses. That's something India is very important for that. Even if you go to the United States for a surgery, the doctor would probably turn around and say, Maria Kuti, bring me that instrument. She must be a nurse from Kerala or somewhere like that. You see
Right.
this? So that spirit of helping others is not only solving the other's problems, it solves your problem. Why? Because then you see in a wider context, you're not only looking at yourself.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
Absolutely. And as we speak, I mean, India Science does so many programs to salute the spirit of doctors and
Oh,
of all the COVID warriors during this time warriors. मेरा अगला सवाल ये है सर कि माना जाता है कि योग जो है उम्र दराज लोगों के लिए होता है. क्या अनुलोम विलोम सिर्फ योग है? योग क्या है? Which provides relief for arthritis, diabetes, blood pressure, so many other ailments. Why does this happen? What are the actual benefits on your body through yoga, Kriya Yoga? So,
okay. First, let me put it this way. As it goes nowadays, you can make two general distinctions between two types of yoga. One is yoga for general health and yoga for spiritual development. While yoga ultimately leads to spiritual development, most what we should look at now is yoga for physical and mind health. And there are all possibilities in the practice of yoga for doing this. One. Now there is another section of yoga which is known as yoga therapy. Now that is the therapeutical part of yoga. It's a specialized subject, yoga therapy. Now, as expert in yoga therapy would tell you that if you practice this asana or this pranayam or anulom vilom, as you said, which is breathing in and out, in a particular pattern, in a particular rhythm, that will set your prana in a proper balance, and from there the whole body will come back to its balance. The stability which had been disturbed will come back. That now this is yoga therapy, so that is a completely specialized subject. But even if you practice generally yoga, you said that is it only for the young? What about the old? Well, we have regular yoga sessions here where we train yoga teachers. It is affiliated to Ayush. We call it the Bharat Yoga Vidya Kendra, and we issue certificates for teachers, yoga teachers. Last batch, one of the best students, one not one, the one of the best of these students was a couple who were uh, I don't know how old they were. 82 and 76. The man was 82 and the
Wow.
lady was 76, and she said, I want to train in yoga. I looked, I said, you, then the daughter who is a doctor who lives in United States, she had come for the Kumbh Mela. We also set up our Akada in Kumbh Mela. So she came there, and when I told her, your mother and father want to, what do she said? They're more healthy than me, sir. They're already practicing yoga. So age is no barrier. But of course, the way of
Yes.
teaching the old people should be slightly different from what you teach the young. I understand. It will take a little. As if this is only if they've never done yoga. These people have already been practicing yoga. They're quite healthy and happy, and they walk around and they play everything with the youngsters. It was amazing to see that the body is old, but the mind is young. This is the secret of yoga. Although there is a particular section of yoga which is called Kaya Kalpa, not the Kaya clinics that are around, that is different. Kaya Kalpa. In Kaya Kalpa, you learn ways and means, specially of how to keep the body fit and not allow it to deteriorate very fast. It will ultimately, but not so fast. So you can maintain. Then you also asked it was a little long question, Kriya Yoga. Now, Kriya Yoga is my parampara. The It's one section of yoga called Kriya. In fact, Patanjali calls his entire text on yoga as Kriya Yoga. Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani iti Kriya Yoga. This is how he starts the opening chapter of Sadhana Pada, Kriya Yoga. He doesn't say Ashtanga Yoga, he says Kriya Yoga. So when you say Kriya, it means technique. When I say Kriya, I'm talking about that particular technique that has come to me through Maheshwarnath Babaji, who was a very senior disciple of a great being called Sri Guru Babaji. Yogananda Paramahamsa, when he wrote his autobiography, mentioned him as Mahavatar Babaji. But
Ji.
this Kriya Yoga line comes to us from there. If you ask me what is this, basically all other practices of yoga apply in Kriya Yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, all these are there. However, the speciality is that this particular Kriya, there must be many other Kriyas, please. Let's not say that this is the only Kriya Yoga. This is my Kriya, our Parampara. Lahiri Mahashaya of Banaras is one of the greatest practitioners of Kriya Yoga known to mankind, actually. Uh, so, Kriya Yoga, as we know it, is that which helps us through certain breathing exercises and pranayam and certain visualizations and the chanting of certain sounds, bijaksharas, to awaken the potent energy which is in all of us, man or woman, residing at the bottom of the spine, which is called the Muladhara. The Kriya is how to take it step by step through the Sushumna, cover all the centers and take it to the Sahasrara, which we consider to be the seat of Shiva. When you say Shiva, it means the all-pervading Supreme Being. What Shankara meant by saying uh,
Shiv.
Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham.
Shivoham.
I am of the nature of bliss and happiness. I am Shivam, I am Shivam. When this energy reaches there, then there is this wonderful ecstasy called Soundari Lahari, where both merge together and there is total bliss. Now, this is the aim of Kriya Yoga. But in the process, what happens, because all your centers and chakras are activated, there are some side benefits like your voice becomes clearer, your mind becomes clearer, your bodily health becomes clearer. I am 72 years old right now. I'm talking to you. So everything becomes clear and the mind still works well. Sometimes I have memory loss. No, I forget something. In fact, I, I have a doctor friend in the US. We have a center in Texas. So every time we have a retreat, and I sometimes say, so what did I say now? So he goes immediately and sends me email saying, do you have to eat these tablets? I think your brain is failing. So it's not failing. There's one way of making people talk to you.
Correct.
So these are the side products, the side advantages of Kriya Yoga. The main aim of Kriya Yoga is a technique by which systematically, step by step, you move your mind to higher levels until it reaches the Sahasrara. This is Kriya Yoga.
And
Wonderful.
one
Of
of
course,
them
I
being
can't discuss the
selective.
technique.
So one of them being selective amnesia, as you said, which can prove very, very good in today's times.
True.
Thank you so much, Shriyamji. You
Thank
said
you.
something, sir. Thank you so
Thank you
much
very much.
for
Thank
telling
you.
us what is yoga and what is not yoga. But I would like to profusely thank you and also request you to join us for one more session. All of us are still wanting for more information because every day you see, glamorous pictures of celebrities posing for yoga. I'm sure that is not yoga.
I know.
And on that
Let's not
note,
discuss.
I request Nakul sir, Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director General Vigyan Prasar, to please present the vote of thanks.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much, Daniel.
As Nidhi rightly said, we've been, there has been a Pepsi advertisement which says, "Ye dil mange more," and it will always be more when we speak with you. So I would certainly request you, sir, if we could have your blessings and we could have you more and more sessions with you, because the list of questions that we have and
Yes.
the list of thoughts that we have is long and long enough, and there are a lot of points and thoughts that are very important for our viewership particularly.
Yes,
And in
yes,
this world, when we talk of the kind of science that we talk about, it's just not a plus b is equal to c, or it's not a plain, it's much beyond that, which needs to
yeah,
be still explored, and it's beyond the realms of our normal sense that we can think of. So we remain, as I said, we remain touched, moved, and inspired by your presence, and we would certainly seek your blessings once again. Please bless us with, and I will request Nidhi and myself will come to you to ask for many more sessions like this. So I hope whenever you have time, do we also look forward to your visit to our offices and other places that we have. And next time, as soon as the pandemic gets over, we will certainly wish you would be here. On behalf of Vigyan Prasar, India Science, I, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
thank you very much. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Hugely indebted to you, sir. I'd like to thank you for making time for us. I'd like to thank Dr. Parasha for joining us and your thoughts on yoga as science. One request to each of you watching, please share this video on Facebook, and this will go a long way. Let's make well-being go viral. Please keep coming and let the wave of spiritual well-being and science together continue. On that note, many thanks for watching. Namaskar.